In today's video, we are going to go over everything that you need to know if you are someone that struggles with a leg that rotates outward. In this video, you're going to learn why this happens after a neurologic injury so that you can get to the best exercises to help you correct a rotated leg and improve your walking. If you're new to this channel, I'm Tara, I'm a neurologic physical therapist, and on this channel we talk about anything and everything related to mobility, health, fitness, and mindset with the end goal of empowering you with as many tools as possible to take full ownership of your rehab and your overall health. And all that said, let's first go over why your leg might rotate outward when you're walking after a neurologic injury. First is due to weakness. So if you've had damage to your brain that's affected your lower extremities or your legs, if your hip flexors are weak, what you'll do is you'll kind of use other muscles in your leg to help bring that leg through, and that can make that leg rotate outward. Number two is you have tightness in the muscles that rotate the leg outward, in particular the glute muscles. Now, why can this happen? Well, if you were in a hospital bed for a long time, or you sit in a wheelchair for a long time and your leg kind of flops out to the side, what can happen is the muscles on the back of the hip that rotate that leg outward do something that we call like adaptively shortening. Or simplified, they just become kind of tight, and therefore, when you go to walk, your leg just kind of stays rotated out to the side, kind of how it looks when you were laying in the bed and your leg was rotated out to the side. Okay, so hopefully those two make sense. The next two are very specific to a neurologic injury. That might be new terms for some of you guys. One is spasticity. So first we need to understand what spasticity is. Spasticity is an involuntary muscle contraction that is a symptom of damage to your brain or your spinal cord. And there are two areas that we can see this happen. One is in the quadricep muscles. So what happens is if your leg is back here, and that quadricep muscle, the quadricep muscle straightens the knee out, kicks in, and your leg kind of stays locked out. When you go to bring that leg through, your knee doesn't bend. So some people kind of rotate their leg out to the side to bring that leg around. The other place we see spasticity is in the muscles that point the foot down and invert the foot. So the muscles that bring that foot kind of in and kind of turn it to the outside. And this can show up in two places that can cause the leg to rotate out to the side. One is if you're walking on the outside of your foot, you will notice that your knee just naturally kind of rotates out to the side. It's just physics. If the base of something kind of tips to one side, everything up that chain is going to also kind of tip to that outside. But the other place you see that is if you are someone that has this spasticity in your ankle that kind of makes that foot roll to the outside. Sometimes what happens is it makes this leg, or your brain think this leg is a little bit longer. So that's another reason why you might kind of rotate out to the side just a little bit, because your foot's a little bit pointed when you go to bring it through. And then the other place that we see this leg rotate out to the side, or another potential cause, is abnormal synergy patterns. Now, you guys hear me talk about this quite a bit if you've been around this channel for a while, but if you're new, an abnormal synergy pattern is when muscles link up or joints link up abnormally. So what does that mean? It means that when your hip does a certain movement, your knee is going to also do a movement, and your ankle is going to do a movement. Many believe that after a neurologic injury, this is due to kind of a hardwired pattern that's built into our brains, and that after a neurologic injury, this pattern kind of reemerges. So there's two. There's an extensor synergy pattern and there's a flexor synergy pattern. An extensor synergy pattern, what happens is the hip adducts or comes close to the other leg. Your knee will go straight at the same time and your foot will point. We call that an extensor synergy pattern. A flexor synergy pattern is when the hip flexes, it also rotates outward, the knee flexes, and the foot flexes. Those go together. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that for some of you, you use a flexor synergy pattern to bring your leg through. And so what happens is you're going to do that entire pattern throughout the leg, so it's going to externally rotate. Now, an extensor synergy pattern can also cause this knee to flop out to the side. And why is that? Well, when you're standing on the leg, your knee needs to be straight, right? But your foot also points when your knee is straight. That's that abnormal linking up. So what happens is that when that knee is straight and that foot is pointed, and you're engaging in that extensor synergy pattern, I think it's kind of like a protective mechanism that your brain just does not want to let that leg bend. So what happens is you kind of rotate it out to the side and you swing it around the side. Now, why is all of that important? It's really a good idea first to work with a physical therapist so that you can figure out what's causing your leg to rotate out to the side. But the other reason is maybe you can rewatch what I just went through and figure out kind of what the root cause of yours is so that you know, do you need to be stretching? So is this due to tightness? Is this due to an abnormal synergy pattern? Is this due to spasticity? Or maybe a combination of all of those, which can also happen. So rewatch that first half, kind of see if any of those explanations resonate with you, because now we're going to go into what do you do based on what that root cause is. So if it's tightness, remember I mentioned that was in the external rotators. So you're going to want to spend some time stretching those external rotators, and we're going to go through that today. But that's just important for you to keep in mind, right? So tightness in those glutes could be potentially causing that leg to rotate outward. So you want to stretch towards internal rotation. If it is spasticity related, remember what I said, the most common places or muscles that become spastic are those muscles that point the foot down and the muscles that straighten that knee out. And again, stretching would be beneficial for you for this one, because when a muscle is tight, that spasticity gets triggered a little bit more easily. So if you lengthen those muscles or you have a little bit more elasticity in those muscles, potentially you're going to decrease that amount of spasticity. So what would you want to stretch? Is you want to stretch your ankle toward plantar or towards dorsiflexion, bending the ankle this way, and you want to stretch the knee back. And we're going to go through all of this today, but this is just to kind of help you figure out which exercises you need to focus on that we're going to go through today, okay? If it is an abnormal synergy pattern, meaning joints are linking up abnormally together, you're going to want to work on isolated joint movement. So isolated hip movement, flexion and extension, right? When you flex, you don't want that knee flexing up and rotating out to the side. That's an abnormal synergy pattern. So you want to be able to swing that leg without that knee moving and without that ankle moving. You also want to be able to rotate the hip without getting too much ankle or knee movement. And you want to work on bending the knee or bringing the leg forward without it rotating out to the side. We call those like isolated joint movements. And then if it's just straight up weakness in the muscles that bring the hip forward, well, then you're going to want to work on just strengthening those hip flexors. And we're going to go through all of these exercises today, but hopefully that helps to give you an idea of the exercises that we're going to go through today, which ones you need to focus on. We're going to start with stretching, then go into strengthening, then go into isolated joint movements. And then I'm going to give you a couple of gait drills that you can do or walking drills that you can do to work on putting all of this together to improve your ability to walk without that leg flopping out to the side. Now, before we dive into the exercises, I do want to tell those of you that are new to this channel, we do have a membership program, and with our bronze monthly membership, which is our kind of base model membership program, you do have access to PDF handouts that go along with all of these videos here on YouTube. This video does have a PDF handout. So again, for all of our bronze members and our silver and gold members, all members, you do get access to that. So what that means is you can print that handout, cross out the exercises on there that don't apply to you, circle the ones that do apply to you, kind of keep that in your therapy area of your home, and make it much easier to start incorporating these exercises into your home exercise routine. To learn more about our membership programs and to sign up, you can visit rehab-hq.com. But now let's go ahead and dive into the exercises. All right, so for the first stretch, you're just going to let that leg, this is your involved leg, hang off the mat and just stretch. Remember, we're stretching that quadricep. This is for those of you that either have that abnormal synergy pattern or you have spasticity, an involuntary contraction in the quadriceps, which will want to make that leg stay straight. We want to stretch that muscle out. So you're just going to let that leg dangle and hold it. A minute is a good length of time to hold that leg or hold that position. Okay, and then the next one you're going to do, this is still your involved leg, is you want to bend your legs up. Now, for some of you, you're going to have to kind of help that leg up there. That's okay. You want to bend those legs up, and then you're going to take your opposite leg, cross it over. So this leg is the involved leg is the one that's on the bottom, and you're going to rotate those legs away. Okay, so you can see we're rotating this hip. We're internally rotating this hip. And again, you want to hold that for about a minute. Now, the other way I like to stretch that hip towards internal rotation is to do it in sitting, setting the involved leg up on a stool. You want it slightly above your hip, and then you're just going to rotate it in. All right, that's a really, really good stretch. And again, you want to hold it for about a minute. All right, now we're going to get into some isolated joint movement. So what we're doing here is we're doing isolated hip rotation. Trying not to let that ankle or that knee move too much. And you're just going to do a nice rhythmic rock side to side. Now, this weight adds a little bit of a challenge. So before you add the weight, make sure you can do this without the weight. But for some of you, the added weight is going to be something that you should be able to handle. And what it does is it forces you to have to control that hip just a little bit more. So I really like adding that weight. Okay, so that's isolated hip rotation. Again, this is your involved leg. Now we're going to do hip flexion. Okay, now I'm showing it to you from this angle because what you want to try and do is hip flexion with internal rotation. So most of you are walking, your legs flopping out to the side. You want to do hip internal rotation. Okay? Hip flexion with internal rotation. Okay, and again, I'm going to keep this camera angle because I want you guys to see this. The other one we want to work on is hip extension with internal rotation. So this, again, the involved leg is on the bottom. And what you're going to try and do is you're going to try and do a bridge. That's hip extension with internal rotation. Okay? So remember, when your hip moves, for most of you, it's going to want to flop out to the side, or it's going to want to rotate outward. So again, we want to try and keep it in. Okay, if you can't cross your legs over like this because that leg is not strong enough, because look, this leg's doing all the work, then you would want to do it with both legs, focusing on keeping your knees close together and lifting and down. Lift and down. If you can't do that, I want to give you one modification with this blue strap. These blue straps are great. I will put a link for them in the description below. And then what I have here is a yoga block in between my feet. And what you're trying to do is the feet are kind of wide. So what you're trying to do is the feet are kind of wide. So you see my feet, right? So that yoga block is helping to keep my feet wide with my knees very close together with this strap. Okay, so what is that doing? That's internally rotating the hips. For those of you that can't actively do it, this is a good setup because this strap can kind of assist you a little bit and it'll hold your legs in that internal rotation as you push up. Now, for some of you, what's going to happen is your leg's going to shoot out straight. Again, that's an abnormal synergy pattern. If that happens, it's really nice to just have someone that can hold your foot so that it doesn't do that and do that bridging. Now, I get this question a lot, but if you wear an ankle foot orthosis, that's a brace that goes on your lower leg, do this with your brace on. Okay? Again, we're trying to isolate movement, and many of these movements, your foot's going to want to point, and we want to block that foot from pointing. So if you have an AFO, an ankle foot orthosis, wear it when you're doing this exercise. All right, and then you're going to do that bridging hip extension with internal rotation. Okay, now we're continuing on with the strengthening, but still kind of that isolated joint movement that I talked about. But this time we're going to focus more on the ankle. So remember how I mentioned earlier that some of you, your knee rotates out because your foot kind of got flop. You walk kind of on the outside of your foot, and then everything up the chain kind of rotates outward. What you're going to want to do or try to do is put your foot on a wedge. And what that does is it just kind of forces that foot towards internal rotation. Okay? And then you want to step your other foot slightly forward. So this is your involved leg. That foot's on that wedge, so it's kind of bringing that knee inward. You want to step your other foot slightly forward. This is your uninvolved leg. Have something over here to hold on to. And then you're going to do a little squat, trying to keep that knee inward, and then you're going to come back up. You're going to do a little squat, and then try and come back up. Okay? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep that leg from rotating outward, or keep that foot from rotating outward, and work on just that isolated hip movement. Okay? So from the side, notice my hip position. So the wedge is on that foot. My uninvolved leg is slightly forward. And then you're just sitting back and coming up. Sitting back and coming up, using that wedge to kind of rotate that foot inward. Okay? Now, one other modification that you can do, if you just can't keep that knee inward, you can add that strap like we did earlier and put that strap around your knees. You want to keep a little bit of distance in between your feet so that your knees are rotated inward, and try and do those squats that way. You see how my knees are rotating inward and up. Okay, so that'll just help a little bit to kind of bring those knees inward. And again, that's just kind of some isolated hip movement without that leg flopping out. All right, now for this one, we're gonna work on that hip flexion, but this is gonna be the hardest one for many of you in standing. So because you're moving against gravity, so a little bit harder than laying down. That's where I really like this resistance band belt. Now, here's a little disclaimer. A company reached out to me recently that has this kind of patented, band assisted device that is very, very similar to this. Now, of course, it's fitted a little bit better, so you don't have like these bands coming across your body, but they want to charge $1,300 for it. This band belt is about $25 on Amazon. So if you're someone that has limited financial resources, meaning that you don't have a money tree growing in your backyard, just be very cautious about some of these like medical devices that are coming out on the market. In my opinion, based on what I saw in the videos and in the pictures that they showed me, it is not something that's worth $1,300, especially because I do think for many of you, it's going to be one of those things that you end up like not using all of the time because you have to put, it's on over your clothes. And so like going to the bathroom and stuff like that, like you can't, you can't really put it under your pants, but if you put it over your pants, that means you got to take it off to go to the bathroom and all of these things. So here's the thing, just buy one of these, use it as a training tool, but it's hip flexion. So what I've done is there's an ankle strap. So I have it on the ankle strap and I have it on the outside of my foot, and then I bring it across and I hook it on the belt. This belt has multiple like little hooks on it, trying to bring it across my body. So it brings that leg up and in, okay? So from the side, what does that look like? Is I would start with your leg slightly back, and then you're just going to try and bring it forward and bring it up and in. Bring it forward and up and in, okay? One of my favorite tools, again, link for this is in the description below. Working on that hip flexion, up and in, okay? So that's kind of like what I would call like gait drill number 1. But now let's go ahead into gait drill number 2. So gait drill number 2 is going to be putting that band around your knees, just like we did with the standing exercises. And you're just going to try and do like little forward, backward steps. Okay. So forward, backward, forward, backward. And I would do this on both legs. So forward, backward, forward, backward. Try and start holding on. And then if you can go from holding on to moving to a wall, I really like that progression because you go from pushing down on something to just kind of having something for balance, but not really giving you support. Okay, so start holding on to something. Once you can do that, kind of move that out of the way and see if you can go to the wall, and same thing, forward, backwards, forward, backwards. The band is used to help pull those knees together to keep that internal rotation. That is it for this video. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, and you're new to this channel and you haven't yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so that you'll get notified every time I upload new videos. Don't forget, there is a PDF handout that goes along with this video that'll have pictures and descriptions of all the videos or all the exercises that we went through in this video. To get instant access to that, you can visit our website, Rehab-HQ, to learn more about our membership programs and to sign up. I enjoyed spending time with you all today, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.